Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 28 of the Inking Out Loud podcast. Joining me today for our discussion to wrap up Robert Jordan's The Eye of the World is my co-host, Drew McCaffrey.
How's it going, everybody?
His wife and returning special guest, Lauren McCaffrey.
Hi, guys.
And, of course, our own sound engineer, Mr. Patrick McCaffrey. Patrick, what's up, dude?
Howdy.
And I suppose I should introduce myself now that I think on it. I'm your host, Rob Santos. I just realized I hadn't actually written that down here.
No one cares.
That's all right. They know who I am 28 episodes in. So, yeah, I mean, going into this episode, I feel significantly more prepared, having made a bunch of notes this time around without really care for future spoilers in this series. I feel like I have a lot more I want to discuss today. But first, I want to pass this off to Drew so that he can give us a recap as to exactly what we've read in the second half of this book. Drew, take it away, my dude.
Yeah, so what we did with our Eye of the World episodes, in case you missed our first episode, is we covered essentially the YA versions of these books. So Eye of the World Part 1, we covered From the Two Rivers, which includes the New Ravens prologue, all the way up through Flight Down the Arenal, which is right after Rand and company all get separated at Shadar Logoth. And so it picks up with Rand and Matt and Tom on the Spray. And we get Perrin and Egwene. Perrin just found out that he's a wolf brother at the end of From the Two Rivers. We have Nynaeve meeting up with Moiraine and Lan. Early on in this section, we have, Perrin and Egwene encountering the White Cloaks. Hopper dies. Perrin snaps, kills a couple Children of the Light. They get captured, all that. Moiraine and Lan and Nynaeve rescue them. Meanwhile, Rand and Matt have a very interesting journey down the Caemlyn Road and meet up with Basil Gill in the Queen's Blessing. Rand has his encounter with Elaine and Gawain and Elida and Morghese. And then the rest of the crew catches up. They all meet together in Caemlyn, figure out that Balsamon is planning to blind the Eye of the World. They travel the ways, get to Faldara, fight their way through the Blight, find the Green Man in the Eye of the World, and we have our concluding showdown. So that's basically the events of the second half of the Eye of the World. If you've read these books before, you should be mostly familiar with that. If you haven't read these books before, be aware that we will be certainly spoiling all of the Eye of the World, and some things we make reference to may spoil things later in the series. But this is, an Eye of the World focused discussion, so while some of those spoilers may come in, we're not just going to be discussing the series as a whole or anything like that.
Yeah. I have a lot of points that draw to later spoilers, just because of I can find these little seeds that Jordan has planted in here. I mean, there's 2 or 3 moments that I'm going to bring up in this podcast where I was like, still somehow after like at least 2 or 3 dozen reads of this book, I'm still picking up on little things. Robert Jordan kind of thumbing his nose at us like, when you come back to this, 10, 12 books later, you're still going to find these little gems that he's hidden in there. I do appreciate that. It was really, really cool.
It's the best part of a lot of opening books in series, I find.
So that reminds me, Rob, I'm assuming you've done the audiobooks, right?
Yeah, I did like the audiobook for 3/4 of this book, and I finished it off with my Kobo.
Okay, so do you have that interview with Robert Jordan at the end?
I do. I actually just finished listening to it about half an hour ago.
Yeah, I love how he talks about, he's like, I don't really do audiobooks, but I do listen to my own stuff just to make sure that I have planted the seeds well for future books. And if I haven't, I like to add in stuff.
Yeah. And he claims that his wife, Harriet, was excellent, just excellent at catching things where, she would say to him, you didn't quite convince me here. I'm not quite sure what you were trying to say here. And he did say, Mr. Jordan, that he does listen to his own audiobooks so that he can kind of make sure his point came across. And it helps him do that when he listens to somebody else say it. It's a really, really cool interview. And at the end of every single one of these Wheel of Time books on Audible, it's the exact same 10-minute interview there.
Oh. I wish it were like new interviews every time.
Oh, that would be awesome if it was a different sequential interview every time.
I've heard that interview so many times now.
Yeah, I've heard that interview 10 times at the very least.
Interesting.
All the way through. It's pretty cool. It's also pretty surreal to hear the voice of the man himself.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just it's really kind of moving. It's just awesome. So yeah, second half of the Eye of the World. I mean, I flew through it this time around. How about you?
Yeah, I think the pace definitely picked up. Certainly with like Shadar Logoth and the Camelin Road. I do want to talk about kind of not necessarily like the speed of events, but the narrative structure, especially the Rand and Matt chapters. So I'm curious as to like how it was in the audiobooks, because I know those chapters or I shouldn't say I know, I've heard that those chapters in some editions, like some later editions, have been like rearranged, because in the original version, those Rand and Matt chapters on the road are like, they bounce all over the place in the timeline.
Yes, they do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Certainly in the version of the audiobook that I have, there's even a scene that's repeated.
Yes, that happens. There are like 3 chapters in a row where the chapter starts off with like Rand and Matt talking to Chaim Kinch, and then it like rewinds after a couple of paragraphs of that to like 2 days earlier, and then goes up, and the chapter ends with them meeting Chaim Kinch and having that same conversation, and then it goes to the next chapter and it does it again.
Oh yeah.
What the hell are you talking? I have never heard or read this particular version of events in that order.
Yeah. So like for instance, I'll pull up like the chapter here.
That's a very pristine looking condition of Eye of the World there, my friend.
Yeah, this is actually like the 6th or 7th copy of this.
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's The Dark Weights was the name of the chapter.
Which it was. Where it, I think on my first read, I read a version that had that going on, and there was a lot of confusion because I just wasn't even used to reading in general back then, let alone a book that was so big, to 13 or 14-year-old me.
Yeah, so chapter 33, The Dark Weights, opens with Rand in the back of a cart, and, some of the people waved or called a greeting to Chaim Kinch, the farmer whose cart it was, blah, 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 blah. And then you go to the end of the chapter, and you get a scene with them, like, walking, exhausted. A mile outside the village, his strength gave out. 1 minute he was panting along, etc., etc. And then Matt gave a grunt of surprise when a cart slowed to a stop before them. A leathery-faced man looked down from the driver's seat. Something wrong with him? The man asked around his pipe. He's just tired. And goes on, they talk a little bit, and he says, well, climb up on. Your friend in the back. If he's sick again, best it's on the straw, not up here. Name's Chaim Kinch.
And Chaim Kinch, now, which stretch of the journey was Chaim Kinch? Because the names of these drivers are all getting mixed up in my head. Almond Bunt, Chaim Kinch.
Unclear to me.
So this is immediate at the end of the chapter. So they meet.
Was he the
Chaim
good
Kinch
Queen's man? Was that
after
him?
they took on Lady Shiane, Millie Skane, the Dark Friend woman.
Yeah.
So the chapter starts with them on his cart, and then it rewinds and tells the story of them going up to the dancing cartman and meeting her, and then leaving, and then meeting Chaim Kinch again at the end of the chapter.
This is going to sound pretty weird, but that could actually be the version of events that I did just read, and it could just be the fact that I've read it so many times and I'm too close to it that I really can't take a big step back and realize exactly what was going on with the timeline there. I actually don't know, but that's something I'm gonna pay attention to going forward for any future reads.
Sure, yeah, and so
definitely.
I know a lot of people have complained about this and have talked about this particular sequence being like tough to read, tough to kind of get your head around, and I've heard some people saying they bounced off the book at this point, where they're like, I totally lost what was going on, it made no sense, and I just put the book down. But I think what Robert Jordan was trying to do here was playing with the mental state of Rand, because these are the chapters when Rand is sick. He's having his final reaction.
Yeah.
Not final, but like second to final reaction to touching the One Powered. This is immediately following calling down lightning in Four Kings.
Yep.
Yeah. And so Rand is confused, so he makes the reader confused alongside Rand. It's just another way that Robert Jordan is so good at putting the reader in his character's shoes.
Like another aspect of immersion.
Yeah, and I like it. I like that he did this kind of weird non-linear timeline just for this one section of the books, because it fits. It fits for the events.
Yes, and he doesn't do it again.
No.
Is the other good part. And you're right, I agree completely that the atmosphere of haze and bewilderment is actually, I mean, and now that I've read it a lot of times and I know what's really happening, you know, I still get that hazy atmosphere, and it's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The fog parted a little bit, but the fog is still there.
It drives home the confusion that the characters are feeling.
Yeah. And we know that Matt's going through a lot of the exact same right now as well.
Yes.
He's not going to remember as much of this as Rand will later. But that's for entirely different reasons. Yeah. So, what else do you want to discuss here, boys and girls?
I got one.
Oh, yeah? So, hit me.
When I started reading the series, I remember going to book group with these guys and discussing it a little bit. And you had a term for Domon.
Yeah, I have that. That's like the first thing I have written down in my notes.
Oh, do you?
Share with the class.
I'd like you guys to talk about
that.
No,
you guys go ahead.
So basically what Bail Domon is, as a character in the series, is a walking, breathing Deus Ex Machina.
Deus Ex
He
Domon.
shows up when the characters need an outlet, need an escape. He shows up out of nowhere in the Eye of the World with his ship, so Rand and Matt can escape the
Bail
Trolls.
Domon.
In the Great Hunt, out of nowhere, he shows up to give them an opportunity. They don't end up taking it, but to give them an opportunity to escape from Falme. Yeah. He shows up in Abu Dar later on, and he's there, so Matt has an opportunity to break out, to get the Damane out and escape Abu Dar. And so we call him Deus Ex Domon.
Deus Ex Domon?
Yeah.
Again, as we get later and later into the series, I'm going to be complaining vehemently that this very important theme and arc, ceases. Where the hell was Domon in the last battle? At Shale Ghul, just his ship going down one of the rivers of the Blight. It's hey, I'm here, guys.
Oh, that would be great.
It would be so awesome. But
yeah.
No, and Bail Domon's great. I love him in this book.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic.
How do you feel about his other half though? Is that a problem for you later on?
We'll get to that when we get to that.
Yeah.
In league with my aged grandmother.
You can't really you can't really discuss Bail Domon without discussing, another character later in the series as well, since they go hand in hand.
God, Robert Jordan's funny.
He is funny.
He's got his shining moments.
His sense of humor really speaks to me. And I can't really think of many times where it falls flat, if any.
Yeah.
Certainly not in this book, although there's a limited amount of comic relief in this compared to other books.
And that's what I was going to say, is that his humor isn't as pronounced. It doesn't take center stage the way writers like Scott Lynch or Glenn Cook or Matthew Stover put it in the middle, front and center. But when Robert Jordan does decide to write humor in, I nearly always find myself laughing.
Yeah. He has a dry and subtle approach to it that I think is very refreshing.
Yeah, subtle is the right word. There are a lot of points where it's something that it doesn't slap you over the head with it. It's if you're not really paying attention while you're reading, you may miss the joke.
Exactly.
Things like Nynaeve, for instance, many times over the series is hilarious unintentionally. In the scene, there's nothing funny about what's going on, but the wordplay that Robert Jordan uses imparts a sense of irony to the reader. Things like Nynaeve, maybe losing her temper, and she says, "I'm not shouting." Nynaeve shouted.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
Like men think they can solve all their problems with violence. She wanted to hit them all with a stick.
Yeah. Those blatant self-contradictions are part of what
getting old enough and becoming an astute enough reader to pick up on that is probably when I started liking Nynaeve a lot more.
Yeah.
Because if you have the wrong impression of those scenes, she's just kind of coming across as bitchy.
That's how I was as a teenager.
Technically it might be true, but that's not the intent.
Yeah.
Of the sequence. We don't get a ton of that in this book.
There are a lot of things that I feel like people tend to bash on Robert Jordan for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it a lot. There was even a big thread on Reddit Fantasy the other day that really kind of set me off. I didn't respond to it or anything because there were already 600 comments, but this guy basically had a whole rant about how Robert Jordan's a terrible writer and his characters are bland and cliche, and
I think
there's no development and there's no humor, there's nothing redeeming about his prose, and I was just like, I could not thoroughly disagree with this more. And one of the things that I see a lot of people complaining about is, the level of detail, right? People are like, oh, I don't need 3 pages describing their dress, and what it comes down to is that people tend to overblow that.
Yes.
We don't ever actually get 3 pages. It's usually just a paragraph describing the dresses of the nobles and their sigils, or things like that, and I actually appreciate that. Because what it does is it paints a really vivid picture for the reader. It serves to help ground us in the world that is a very expansive world.
Yes.
It's if he wrote Hemingway and had this world, this series would be incomprehensible. Everybody would be so confused. How does she know that this lord is from this house? Well, you just have to go with it if he didn't describe anything. And and so it's especially funny to me when I hear these complaints coming from self-professed big-time epic fantasy readers. I see it a lot on Reddit, especially from people who are big fans of Malazan Book of the Fallen and A Song of Ice and Fire. And I'm like, have you read A Song of Ice and Fire and Malazan Book of the Fallen? They have just as much detail as The Wheel of Time does.
And in fact, there are certain circumstances where Jordan lacks detail, where Martin would emphasize it, like sex scenes, for instance. Jordan, thank God, glosses over a lot of that because he realizes that I don't need to read that. Martin, on the other hand, ick is the word that comes to mind.
Especially with some scenes, but we won't get into But
I agree with what you're saying, and that's the detail that is provided is not superfluous detail. It does serve a purpose.
Yeah.
And beyond that, what if I like to imagine the book that I'm reading in my head?
Hey, what about
what
that?
A concept.
Yeah, it's there are some people this blew my mind when I first discovered this, and this was just recently, that there are people out there who are not capable of imaging in their heads as they read. They cannot summon an image of what they're reading.
Really?
Yeah.
How is that even possible?
I find that's part of my problem with art, for example. Friends of mine who are really good, like Danielle, for example. Shout out to Danny with visual art. They say they can picture these things in their head. Or my friend Jordan, I can't really picture anything perfectly in my head. I can picture 1 or 2 people. I can picture a room and a scene, but I don't know. I'm part of the group that, for the most part, I agree with pretty much exactly everything you guys are saying. But nearer to the end of the series, when the plot wasn't really moving anywhere, and we kept going back to these kind of, I don't know, delicate politicking situations between Aes Sedai, and we have all these endless, seemingly endless, I should say, depending on whether you're partial to it or not, descriptions of these of clothing, of settings and scenes. For me, it did drag a little, but not at the beginning, not at this point of the series. It wasn't until books 7 through 11 when I was really starting to feel that drag.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll get to that when we get to that, but
but at this point, I'm still fine with it.
Especially in this book, this is our first glimpse of the world. I want to know what kind of, clothing Elaine and Gawain are wearing, because this is our first time seeing royalty. I want to know
what the palace looks like.
What does it look like? What am I getting into?
And more importantly, it's Rand's first time seeing nobility and scene. And I was going to talk about that scene in particular, and that it really does spark the imagination and open up the world a little bit, that we get to a brief little glimpse into this much, much bigger thing than Rand had ever experienced. And that was exciting and interesting. A lot of things surrounding that scene were really cool. A lot of foreshadowing.
Oh yeah.
And I also love the description. We get some of Caemlyn's culture.
Yeah.
Not only from, the main characters, but the descriptions. And I feel like going further on in the series, I understand the different cultures, and I like that. I like that he went into that much detail.
Yeah.
It feels more realistic.
Yeah, it enriches the world.
Yeah,
Speaking of cultures, just briefly,
yeah, go ahead.
Emmons Field, well, and the Two Rivers in general, Beltane is a real festival.
Yes.
That was in Irish culture.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
yeah.
I think
it's called Beltane.
Okay, well, it's in other cultures too.
It's a pagan festival.
Yeah. So
wow.
so you'd find it.
That's news to me. I didn't know that.
You can draw like basically analogies directly across from nations in our world to nations in the Wheel of Time. The Two Rivers being largely Irish and Andor in general being largely England.
Although when we get outside of that, while we can still draw parallels, a lot of them have mixed cultures brought into them.
Like the Aiel, for instance, are at least
and
3 different cultures.
And Ara Doman and Tarabon and But yeah, I think a lot of the complaints that I see people bring up with Robert Jordan's writing in this, I don't see any validity in them, because they either tend to be like somebody being really reductive or completely hyperbolic about them, or it almost seems like somebody came in wanting to dislike Robert Jordan.
Yeah, I see that quite often.
And that's, this is not a unique thing. There are plenty of people I see in like the Wheel of Time forums and whatnot who go into A Song of Ice and Fire wanting to dislike George R. R. Martin, or go into the Stormlight Archive wanting to dislike Brandon Sanderson because they didn't like what he did, when he took over or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's this weird like competitiveness in science fiction fantasy fandom, where like people get such an attachment to the series they like that they see any other series as like the enemy. And instead of just being like, hey, maybe I'll read this and I'll find another thing I love, it's like I have to go in and tell everybody why it's not as good as the thing I love. And that like bothers me a little bit. Because like, while I don't, like A Song of Ice and Fire, for instance, it's not my favorite series in the world. It has its problems, but especially the first 3 books, I really liked. A Storm of Swords is one of the finest novels I've read.
I enjoyed it.
But when when you go into a forum conversation where you're like, all right, like somebody's like, oh, I have a Game of Thrones and I have the Eye of the World. Which one should I read first? The comments just devolve into this like flame war instead of everybody being like, oh, they're both good books, and maybe if you like this, you'll like that one more. If you like that, you'll like this one more. I can't imagine
a scenario where that discussion goes down well on any forum.
Right.
Yeah. And so
the internet lends itself really well to that kind of narcissistic discussion. That's what I think it comes down to, really, is narcissism.
Well, you can say whatever you want, and there are no consequences because they aren't with you.
But
in the room. You don't have a relationship with these people. You can do whatever.
That's only the part that lets them say like
crappy stuff.
Even more things. But what you're talking about, what they feel initially, their dislike for a series based on no rational reason. That is what I think is the narcissistic element.
But bringing this all back to my original point with Robert Jordan's writing style in The Eye of the World, and it gets just enriched upon as we go on through the series. The things that he does well in this book just get better as we read on. Yeah. Like the humor, while it's very, subtle, or not even subtle because it's not a focus in Eye of the World. In later books, we get more humor.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
When we get Matt points of view and things like that, we get Nynaeve points of view. We get different kinds of humor. We get like dramatic irony usually with Matt, and it's Robert Jordan in this book flexing his writing muscles and coming to the foundation for what he can be, that we see develop over the next 13 books in this series. So.
Hell, there's even some points in this book where I could have wished for much more detail than we got.
Like what?
The end. The whole, like, from the time they walk into the Green Man's crib.
Oh, yep.
Till the time the book ends. I'm just like, no, wait, stop, more.
Hold on. What is that exactly? What is the Eye of the World? Let's go through it.
It'd be almost impossible to provide that kind of detail, though.
Well, and this goes back to what he was doing on the Camelin Road. The reason he didn't give us this much detail is because it's from Rand's point of view, and he's overwhelmed.
Yeah.
He has no idea what's going on, just as much as we don't have any idea what's going on.
Well, the Green Man says a couple things, but then he doesn't keep going.
Right, well, he does get interrupted.
Because it wouldn't be he doesn't need to info dump. Like, that's what it would turn into, is just an info dump.
And also his memories,
Yeah. Someshta is injured, doesn't have all of his faculties, but let's move into characters here. And I actually want to start with Perrin and Egwene.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. And their time with Elias and with the Tinkers. This whole section is, for one thing, rife with foreshadowing.
Yeah.
But it's also it's extremely formative for Perrin, and in a less pronounced way even for Egwene, because this is Egwene's this is her one foray off her track to being an Aes Sedai. And I think it just goes to show what kind of a person Egwene is here, is that she's like a social chameleon in a lot of ways, where when she's put in a circumstance, she looks and sees at what is the thing in this social circumstance I can do to make myself the most important.
Or valuable.
And in...
Ouch.
Well, it's the truth, though.
Kinda, yeah.
We see her in the Eye of the World in the Raven's prologue. She's in a social circumstance, and what does she want to do? Advance. She wants to get out of it. She wants to be more important than the people she's with. She wants to be done being a water carrier, so she can, have more respect. And then we see her at the beginning of Eye of the World, and she's still in the Two Rivers, but we know that she's been pining to get her hair braided. We find out that she got her hair braided late. She just got it braided at the beginning of this book. Rand saw her for the first time with her hair braided at the beginning of this book on Winter Night. And we also find out that she's like, yeah, I'm going to be the wisdom. And then the moment she finds out that she can channel, she's like, oh no, screw all that. I'm going to be an Aes Sedai.
Yeah, she kind of does just up and take off, eh?
And even in between those, when she's like, I'm going to be the wisdom, instead of saying, yeah, I'm going to be the wisdom for Emond's Field, she's like, well, Nynaeve's young, so I'm just going to leave all this behind and go be the wisdom somewhere else.
Right. Forget Rand and how much she supposedly loves Rand.
Yeah. But then, and so then when we get Perrin and Egwene with the Tinkers, this is her one, departure from that. This is her one time when she's like, maybe let's not go to Tarvalon. Maybe I won't be an Aes Sedai. Maybe I can just dance and be
Did she seriously
carefree.
Consider that, though?
She never, because we're not in her head, we're in Perrin's head.
I never got the impression that she was even considering that for a second.
Oh, I very much did.
I think
she has one conversation with Perrin
a little bit.
She has one conversation with Perrin where she says, what if we just stayed here?
Is really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And Perrin's like, no, we can't.
Oh, that's right, because Perrin is like, then the Trollocs would come, and then you'd have all their blood on your hands. That's right. I remember that conversation now.
And so this is kind of the exception that proves the rule with Egwene. Her time with the Tinkers here. And of course, she very quickly, as much as she makes a show of being sad and keeping the reminders of Aram and the Tinkers as they leave, she very quickly abandons all of that as soon as she's back with Moiraine and has Aes Sedai in her sights. So it just goes to show Egwene doesn't really build attachments to people or things. She's just all about, what can I do to increase my stature.
Yeah.
Well, those
Social
moments
status.
where she's caught between Nynaeve and Moiraine, and
those
she
are
has
funny.
no idea what to do, are really informative of her character as well.
Mm-hmm.
She's kind of made her decision, but wants to like play both sides of the fence a little bit, you know, to mollify Nynaeve, but also impress Moiraine with how mature she is. Hypothetically mature.
Well,
But isn't there a moment where she's caught between Moiraine and Nynaeve, and she just kind of looks regretfully at Nynaeve and is like, sorry, but she has to go with Moiraine, and that kind of leads to a little bit of tension between the two, perhaps? I think I remember that happening specifically at one point.
I think you're right.
Barillon?
Yeah.
doesn't she sit down like directly in the middle of them?
Yeah, she does.
Yeah,
but I think that's in
table.
Faldara or Camelin.
No, it's at in the dining room at the Stag and Lion in Barillon when Nynaeve shows up. Egwene's like
that's right when Nynaeve first appears.
Against the wall and has her hood up.
Yep.
And because she doesn't want Nynaeve to see that she's unbraided her hair.
Yeah.
And then eventually she sits directly between the two of them when they all sit down at the table.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I think there's another incident where she goes off with Moiraine for like training or something, and Nynaeve's just like, upset about it.
There's never a moment where Egwene is off for training. All of her going off to train is before Nynaeve shows up.
Okay.
Because when Nynaeve shows up is in Barillon, and then from Barillon to Shadar Logoth they're being chased by Trollocs.
And afterward, there's no time for training when they meet back up anyway.
Yes. We don't see them between the rescue and Camelin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, since we're on the subject of Egwene, and like you said, Drew, how Perrin's kind of whole narrative is kind of intertwined with hers at this point, I do have a few points about Perrin that I wanted to discuss too.
Yeah.
Have we all got our chance to discuss Egwene though? I want to make sure that we have. Excellent.
Yeah, and then some.
Yeah, and then some. So, and there was a part at the end of part 1, actually. I totally forgot to bring this up last episode, but there was a moment when Perrin is trying to cross the Arenelle, and he's almost drowning. And just for a second, after he releases his cloak, his waterlogged cloak, he considers to rid himself of the weight, throwing his axe. And to me, that was a very, very kind of cool moment to read, seeing as how much to do with that axe his narrative goes in the future. That little throwaway moment was something that stuck out to me. Not particularly on this read-through. I had already come to expect it by this time around, but just in the past few read-throughs, like in the past few years, I didn't realize that little detail was in there, and I found it pretty cool.
I would almost be willing to argue that's a Taviran nudge.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
In a foreshadowy kind of sense, because at this point he's done nothing to where he hates the axe. He's just always had it, and he doesn't understand yet, right? But that little tiny inclination could have been the pattern, maybe nudging him a little bit. That's up in the air, and probably it's ultimately irrelevant, but a fun thing to consider.
Yeah, little moments where a small twist of fortune happens, and I'm just like, oh, you know what? A little Taviran nudge could be involved here. So, what about you, Drew, Lauren, Perrin?
Yeah, so Perrin, sticking on the axe thing, this part 2 of Eye of the World is where we have one of Perrin's most important pieces of advice from Elias.
From Elias? Yes.
And he tells him, as long as you hate using that, you'll use it. But when you find yourself liking it, that's when you know you need to throw it away.
I was going to ask, I couldn't remember if that happened here or next meeting.
Yes, that's when they're in the steading, hiding from the ravens. There's a pool nearby their campsite, and Perrin is... Because Perrin, while they were running from the ravens, and they see the ravens absolutely savage these animals, horrific deaths.
Oh, it's awful.
And he considers what happens if they catch us.
Yeah.
And he says, what if I have to kill Egwene to spare her from that horror?
That's right.
And
it was the come down from
that. And so it was because he even
only.
considered doing that, he was ready to go throw the axe in the pond, and Elias stopped him.
Oh, he started to. He wasn't just ready to. He actually started to. Elias grabbed him and stopped him and said,
by the way, that scene is so graphic with the fox.
Yeah, it's a nuts scene.
Oh my god.
Oh, it wasn't that bad. I mean, maybe it's just because I'm still
bad.
riding our post-Kane high, but...
Like, if you pause after and think about it, it's...
There is something about here that I wanted to touch on with Perrin and Egwene, and that's that there's a kind of implication that Perrin has feelings for Egwene that go beyond friendship.
Because is there though? Because he specifically says, "I love her," and then he says, "But not in that way." I think he's talking to Elias.
Well, so he says.
I mean, he said that to Elias.
He says, "I love her, but not like that," and then he also says, "But not like a sister."
Yeah.
I can see how people would get the impression that Perrin has feelings for it, but I think that when you really dig into Perrin's internal, thoughts, it becomes clear he doesn't have romantic feelings toward her. It's more that it's framed in these chapters where Aram is the one who sees Perrin as, competition, and Perrin's just like. When you actually dig into what he's thinking about, he's just concerned that Egwene's doing something dumb and getting too close to the Tinkers. He's not afraid of. He's not jealous of Aram.
That's our proof right there that he doesn't have any kind of romantic interest in Egwene, because as a young man, I could tell you that if he did, those scenes with Aram would have bothered him a lot more than they did. Yep.
Well, honestly,
young men and even older men, for that matter.
I remember being that age. I would have been. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
Lauren.
sorry. I kind of think that had it been Matt instead, even though Matt isn't interested either, I think it would have boiled his blood a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, Matt would have.
Matt's got some more pride than
endlessly tormented Aram if he ever met him. Matt would have had a field day with that guy.
Oh man, wouldn't that have been awesome? Why did we never get some Matt and Aram action? That would have been cool.
Speaking of the Tinkers, though, I do want to just bring this up. There was one little bit of foreshadowing that amused me, and it's when Elias is speaking with Rand and Isla, and they talk about how they avoid the cities, and they kind of laugh, and they're like, "Oh, the song won't be found in a city," and obviously, okay. So the song, the Tinker's song, we're going to make this very clear, is not the Song of Growing. It is not.
Mr. Jordan's been very clear about that too.
But the root of the legend of the Tinker's song is the Song of Growing, which was found in a city in the Aiel Waste.
Yes.
So, I just wanted to say that. But
yeah, no, that's totally fair. Matt's character, post getting the dagger, is really interesting to see his descent into this, and the things that stick with him after he's later on, in the Dragon Reborn, when the bond is finally severed, but we see the first glimmers of these shards of darkness that don't entirely leave him. His suspicion of Moiraine is a big thing. He was vaguely he was in the same boat as Matt and Rand and Perrin, in that they don't know what's going on, but he wasn't as actively hostile before the dagger, but he is afterward because he carries it for so long.
So I do want to also touch on Matt and the dagger, and this is something that maybe I didn't give it enough, just consideration in the past. But when Moiraine sees Rand, and Matt, excuse me, and she says straight out, she's like, "It's a wonder he's still alive, that he made it this far." She says, "It is a wonder you got this far carrying this." And then 2 pages later, when they're talking about, what is it? And Nynaeve says, "Is it catching? I can still treat him." She says, "Oh, it is catching, and your protection wouldn't save you." And she says, "The evil that killed Shadar Logoth is in it, and in Matt, too, now. By carrying the dagger beyond the walls of Shadar Logoth, he freed it, the seed of it, from what bound it to that place. It will have waxed and waned in him, what he is in the heart of him, fighting what the contagion of Mashadar sought to make him. But now the battle inside him is almost done, and he is almost defeated." So, the 2 statements there, she's saying it's a wonder he got this far carrying it. And then 2 pages later talks about what actually happened. that statement and those two taken together are a signpost for just how strong and just how good Matt is at his heart.
Yeah.
Because it is his core is what is fighting this. And it's lasted this long. To the point where Maureen is surprised he's even still alive.
You mean in terms of his ability to resist the corruption?
And it's such a juxtaposition against the character of Matt that we see on the page, who's so full of suspicion and so paranoid and hateful and antisocial, that it's easy to think about Matt in these first couple of books, when he's got the dagger, as like annoying or obnoxious or not fun to read, not a good character. But when you really dig into it, it's a signifier of just how great a person he is.
Yeah. When he pulls out a dagger and charges one of the Forsaken, when he's going after Nynaeve.
Yeah.
Nynaeve.
And Nynaeve, exactly.
It's not Perrin, not Egwene, Nynaeve.
Yeah. I still think he would have done for
but the fact
from his village.
that it's Nynaeve, of all the Two Rivers people, Nynaeve's the one that Matt gets along with the least. She's the one who punished him the most, who made his life miserable the most.
They have all this contention,
yeah.
But when push comes to shove, there was not a second's hesitation.
No.
In the face of impossible odds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He had no chance.
Not even a snowball's chance in the pit of doom. Bloody ashes.
Snowball in the pit of doom. I like that.
I am going to curse for all these episodes, but I'm going to do so in Wheel of Time fashion.
I love it.
Oh, I like it.
I was, you know what? I was thinking about opening with a Wheel of Time curse in one of these episodes, and I was like, maybe I'll save that. But since I know that's on the table now, I can run with it.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's on the table.
Okay,
it's on the flaming table.
I've got a question though. So when you listen to the audiobooks a bunch, do you ever find yourself starting to talk that way and like when you're driving, being like, blood and bloody ashes, come on, woman. You know,
yes
like
and no. Yes and no. I don't use it in my daily vernacular, talking to people, but when I'm writing down notes, I find myself using a lot of this terminology sometimes. And like, for example, I had a note down here about, I forget who it was. Oh, it's on my phone, which is turned off. But it was, it was a clue I had found, and I wanted to write down. I was like, oh my god, blood and bloody ashes. Like, I was using the kind of Wheel of Time cursing in my notes as I was writing this down.
Oh, my creator.
I'm going to say, I've never listened to the audiobooks, and I absolutely use, especially Blood and Ashes and By the Light or Thank the Light.
Thank the Light.
Thank the Light. I've definitely used Thank the Light in my daily vernacular.
I mean, it's definitely in my vernacular. Which is, and this is something that I'll bring up. I've sort of a touch and go relationship with proprietary cursing in fantasy series, you know? The big one is, of course, Brandon Sanderson, where each of his different worlds has different, cursing systems, so to speak. Warbreaker, you have colors, and Storm Undercarve, the storms, storm you, all that, And
I almost wrote storming in my notes this time too. That was a weird moment for me.
Yeah, it's I would never in a million years use storming. I think that sounds absolutely stupid.
Yeah. Really? I kind of like.
No, I think it's dumb. It does not work for me at all. The only one that really works for me among Sanderson's books is actually Skyward. I think scudding actually sounds like a curse word.
Sounds dirty. Yeah.
Yeah. We talked about it on our Reckoners episodes. I hate sparks and slaunts. I think that just sounds dumb.
And a Warbreaker, colors.
Yeah, color. Yeah. But
Brandon's
the cursing
too innocent,
in the Wheel of Time, the cursing in the Wheel of Time feels like cursing.
Yes.
It's so good. I mean, there are curses, just the standard blood and ashes, blood and bloody ashes.
Nynaeve has one in
that carries weight to it,
Get enough of.
And then there are some later in the series when characters get really creative that are just absolutely sheep swallow up and bloody buttered onions and and
mother's milk in a cup.
Yeah, it's so colorful and it feels like real cursing.
It fits the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I find it hilarious that Elaine likes to collect them all.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
That was another one of my favorite points in that scene with Rand and Elaine and Gawain in the garden is where she curses under her breath and Rand's like, I just heard that for the first time from one of the stablemen at the Queen's Blessing yesterday.
He was surprised even then.
Okay, and while we're touching on the curse words, it's many times throughout the series it's implied that they use the same curse words we do as well.
Yes. It is.
But it's just not on the page.
I was going to bring that up. They'll say like there was one point where Matt in this book, in Faldara, I believe, starts cursing in a monotone under his breath. And the implication I got from that is he was just going, fuck. Like, you know.
I'm going to make that just one long censor, just so you
But that's, that's the implication, because there's so much of the blood and ashes type cursing.
And flaming.
Yeah, like, that's just given to us on the page. So you don't...
Although it gets a little boring with Uno, I would say.
And so when you hear, like, when Robert Jordan says, like, Elaine said this under her breath and it, like, made Rand blush, and you're just like, okay, so that... She was, like, dropping legit, like, F-bombs and C-words and stuff, and, like...
Yeah.
So...
there's, like, one time where Rand's, like, yelling at Aviendha, and he's like, if I offended some bloody Aiel custom, I don't give a... It's like, we know what he was gonna say. Like...
Yeah.
Shit, I hadn't considered these particular moments. I thought you were just talking about moments where it says, oh, Matt let out a soft curse or something like that. I didn't actually stop to consider these moments where it's a little more blatant than that. Yeah. Pat, the one that you just brought up with Aviendha, I totally that one's reading clear as day in my memory. I actually didn't stop and consider this though. Got to say something that we could probably imagine what it was.
But sticking on characters, shall we move on to Rand? Here?
Yes.
Because there's a lot to talk about with Rand in the second half of this book.
Is there ever? Yeah.
I mean...
Want to kick us off, my man?
Sure. So Rand in the second half of this book it's the first time we see him really having to take control of his surroundings, because he's alone with Matt, and Matt is under, the sway of the Shadar Logoth dagger. Mm-hmm. And Rand has to be the leader. These are the first signs that we get that Rand can, when necessary, lead. And he can adapt to his circumstances and do the right thing, do the smart thing. And he's still learning. He still makes some mistakes. But, his handling of the Dark Friends on the road, especially Pater in Market Sharon.
Yeah.
Which, okay, quick aside here. Again, going back to that scene where Moiraine is talking about the dagger, and she says that, like, I felt the evil of it when I laid eyes on him, the touch of Mashadar, but a Fade could sense it for miles. Some Dark Friends could probably feel it too. Mm-hmm. Those who have truly given away their souls. And then they mention, they were Dark Friends on the road. Yeah. But that tells you Howell Gode, Millie Skane, and Pater, the peasant boy from Market Sharon, are like the bad of the bad.
Yeah, they went far.
Because they're the ones who sensed it. They're the ones who were drawn to the dagger. And it recontextualizes things, especially with Pater. I mean, we see Millie Skane, the Lady Sheain, whatever you want to call her, many times later in the series, and we know just how far gone she is. But Pater, we only see him one more time in this series. And that is in Amador, when he is captured and hanged by the White Cloaks. And if you're not paying attention, you may have forgotten that Pater from Market Sharon was a Dark Friend way back in Eye of the World, because in Amador, he's trying to help Morghese escape from the White Cloaks.
And for once, we see the White Cloaks actually execute somebody for being a Dark Friend and being right.
It is the same?
It's this the same
is
guy, as far as I can remember, the only time in the series we see the White Cloaks actually execute a Dark Friend.
Right. And what it was, I forget the guy who was showing it to Morghese, but he was like they were worshipping the Dark One and chanting some catechism to it. Like, oh shit! Like,
yeah,
okay.
like he was part of like a cell of Dark Friends in Amador.
Yeah, Pater doesn't fuck around.
Like
Apparently
this kid
not.
comes off as just like bumbling, like, oh, like maybe he made a mistake kind of Dark Friend. It's like, no, this kid was bad news kind of a thing.
See, the only point of contention I would have to that point right there would be specifically about Howell Goad. I mean, they mentioned how he went to like every inn in town before he found Matt and Rand. He didn't know them until he actually laid eyes on them.
But he knew
if
they
he
were
could
there.
sense them, then why go to like the other 20 inns first?
Well, it's not like an absolute beacon.
Seemed like he needed to visually recognize them before he actually.
Pater was the same way. He walked in to the inn and was like turning around to walk back out before he like stopped and noticed.
Yeah. It might not be as accurate as like a Murdral or
even Murdral, it's not accurate because there's the Murdral.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like 20 feet from them at Carey's Ford. That doesn't. It knows they're around, but it doesn't know exactly where.
It's not as heightened as channeling.
Well, so Moiraine, again, in that same scene, she describes what it would be like, and it's like the air itches around them.
Oh.
Yeah. So when they know they're nearby somewhere because they're compelled...
Actually, I think Moiraine even goes a step farther and says they wouldn't even know what it was, just that they're feeling something.
And they're drawn to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as a magnet draws iron filings. Yeah.
So,
okay.
But but so for Rand, like, the way he handles Pater, for instance, in Market Sharon, like, he handles that with aplomb. I mean, he does pretty well on that.
Like, you say aplomb? He decked the dude. That wasn't aplomb.
No, like he handles it well. Like, he doesn't...
I thought I heard you aplomb for some reason.
No, I said aplomb.
What?
Yeah,
maybe at first, I'm thinking
like,
of the word.
He handles Pater, like, he's just immediately he's like, you're a dark friend. Get out of here. We don't want anything to do with you. Leave. And they just get up, and Rand's like, all right, I'm out. And he just, like, starts walking out. And Pater chases after him, and that's when Rand turns around and decks him. You want me to read the scene?
No, I believe you. I'm thinking that I actually didn't learn the word aplomb correctly. I think I have a incorrect definition in my head. I thought aplomb meant with grace and subtlety and kindness. Is that not what that word means?
Well, I mean, like, that's what my point is that before Rand had to deck him, he was just like, you're a dark friend, leave us alone, I'm leaving.
Okay. Yeah, he was. I mean, he was being gracious to begin with. It wasn't until Pater actually grabbed him on the way out and he had that kind of PTSD flashback where he just went
to expand on that, though,
decked him.
Like, maybe you did have, like, a little bit of a misconception of aplomb.
Sure,
like,
yeah.
So you said, like, with grace, like, aplomb is just like self-assurance.
Oh, okay.
Like confidence. Like, you handled things.
Yeah. Rand, and that's a good way to describe Rand throughout this book.
Yeah, so
like,
I did kind of not know what
he's scared a lot of the time.
Learned it
but
incorrectly.
He's never cowardly. He's always he's never cowardly. He's always fighting. He's always, and he holds on to hope even when it looks really forlorn.
Yep.
Like, it's the glimmers of the badass that he's going to become.
Yeah.
Like I believe I mentioned last time, we see a lot of Rand's early sparking in this book, all the scenes in the World of Dreams, which are great scenes, every one of them.
Yeah.
With Baalzamon, where he's like, he thinks it's the Dark One legitimately, and he's like, no. This is not going to be a thing. I'm not.
Yeah, like
I'm not. Whatever it is that you want me to do, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, he's terrified, but he's still resistant.
Yeah,
you know, he's still. Yeah. I fully agree there, and I also fully agree. All of the, as we know now, Dream Shard scenes with Baalzamon in this in Eye of the World are excellently vivid. You know.
They're Dream Shards, not the World of Dreams.
Yeah. We find that out. I think it's not till A Memory of Light. In fact.
Yeah, when Rand is talking with. Maybe that's. Yeah.
With but I mean the details in them are so cool. the endless hallways with the dripping water. I think like that's one thing that will always stand out to me is the dripping water in the distance that Rand keeps hearing during when he's running up and down the halls trying to escape. And there's always dripping water. And like for some reason that's so creepy to me.
Gives it a very surreal flavor, yeah.
Yeah, and then of course there's the dining room with the fireplace of screaming faces in the stones.
Yeah.
And the wild clouds outside. And
okay, speaking of this moment, let me just Kari Thor, right?
Okay.
Oh
now,
goodness.
That's like it would be easy to dismiss what happens in this book as Baalzamon making some sort of illusion, if it wasn't for the fact that after Rand does his thing,
she remains.
She remains, and she says, "Thank you, my son."
And it pisses off Baalzamon. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, and so I'm with you, Pat. I think that really was Kari Althor's soul. There are some holes in that, because we know, due to Balefire, essentially, and the mechanics of Balefire, we know that the Dark One cannot grab a soul to transmigrate because there is a window for him to do so. And that Balefire causes him to miss that window because they died before, they died before they died.
Balefire come into this, though?
Well, so let me finish. If he did indeed have Kari Althor's soul, that means he must have grabbed it and has been holding on to it ever since she died.
Which is depressing.
It's depressing, but also, how would he have known to grab her soul when she died? Because that was well before he had Padan Fain focused on the Two Rivers, and Padan Fain only knew it was one of the three of them 3 years ago. Well, and Rand's mom died when
he was 4?
When he was way young.
Yeah, but does the Great Lord of the Dark, or what, the Dark One, have to have collected her soul because he knows who she is? Maybe, like she says, the Great Lord of the Dark has a honeyed tongue for unwary souls. Maybe he's just collecting them as he can.
I mean, maybe that would help possible. Fill in the hole if he just automatically grabs souls as they die.
So those that he can, he can't grab all of them.
Yeah.
A less
maybe she just fell for it.
Tidy explanation, but one that I think is the correct one is. I mean, logically, everything that you said is right on the money. However, I think that's just one of those details that Jordan had not nailed down at this point.
Makes sense.
That was going to be the next thing I was going to go to. Because there are things, as we discussed in the last episode, there are things that he had clearly not figured out, and many of those weird things that break the rules happen during that sequence at the end of this book.
Right.
So yeah, I will also say, and this this is a shout out to Ebony in the Wheel of Time group.
Ebony.
I'm gonna. Because she's a particular proponent of a certain theory about Nakomi.
Which theory does she?
That Nakomi is Tigraine.
Tigraine?
That
really?
Nakomi? Yeah, no, it makes no sense. It makes no sense.
I was
because Tigraine died.
That took me off.
And if the Dark One does indeed grab souls as they die, Nakomi cannot be Tigraine. I mean, there are many other issues with that, but that's I'm just gonna point that out. So
okay, yeah, many other issues, but
without going into any more details about Nakomi or Tigraine, I'm just gonna put that out there. So,
yeah,
but yeah, there are a lot of things in that last segment that are kind of wild. And actually, there's one more thing I do want to talk about that's kind of a common misconception, and it's with the black cable stretching off.
It's his connection to the Dark One.
Well, so when Rand fights Baalzamon at the end here, he's fighting, and as he's fighting, he sees this thick black cord pulsing off of Baalzamon, and Rand notices also there's like a pulsing cord of light from him, like connecting him to the Eye of the World, right?
Yeah.
And so Rand shapes the one power into a sword of light and cuts off that black cord and then stabs Baalzamon. And then in The Dragon Reborn and again in The Shadow Rising, we see a similar description, but not the same description, with Baalzamon and then with Asmodean, where there are many black cables stretching into like the infinite blackness behind them. And Rand cuts them in both of those scenes. So a lot of people tend to think that they're the same thing. They are not the same thing. So in this book, the black cord that Rand cuts is Baalzamon's essentially conduit of the true power.
Right.
He's severing him from the true power.
So he's almost shielding him in a way.
Essentially, yeah. Whereas the black cables that he cuts off of Baalzamon and Asmodean later are the Dark One's connection and protection from the taint.
Because they're using the one power in those... Well, Asmodean has to be because he doesn't have true power access.
Correct. And, well, they both have the cables all the time anyway. It doesn't matter if they're actively using it or not, because the Dark One doesn't want them, obviously going insane. But that's just like another big misconception that I see a lot, and I wanted to kind of clear the air on before we move on to anything else.
Okay. There's just a couple of other characters I wanted to talk about really quick. Number one being Jeffrem Bornhold. I wanted to discuss him because I thought he was a really, really cool character. And this is why. I mean, the entire interrogation scene between himself, Perrin, and Egwene, that was so tense. And I never really appreciated, until now, like what a detached, intelligent, logical White Cloak actually looks like. We get a couple other examples throughout the series, most notable ones being Padron Nile and Galad Damodred. But by then, both men are not particularly consequential to the fate of our immediate, main characters. But in this scene with Jeffrem, we get this kind of nerve-wracking interrogation from a man who is smart enough to listen rather than speak, and then he hits you with unsettling questions. After their whole made-up origin story, for example, his only comment is, "There's no water in that." And like for the first time reading this book, 11-year-old me was like really getting nervous when he said that. It was like, it kind of spoke to me like every time I had been caught doing like wrongdoing myself. And there's this big scary adult that was being entirely too calm. I don't know. It kind of gave me that unsettling feel. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Jeffrem Bornhold. And I just want to say also that it's just too bad that Jeffrem had to die, and that we were stuck with his stupid son for the rest of the series.
Who apparently learned nothing from his father.
Nothing at all.
I would also like, on the subject of Dane Bornhold, just to throw a rumor out there.
Okay.
A TV show rumor.
Oh.
Tom Felton. Draco Malfoy.
Oh, as Dane Bornhold?
He is apparently in Prague right now and is taking, like, sword fighting lessons. And one of the rumors coming out is that he may be playing Dane Bornhold, Gawain, or Galad.
I think Dane Bornhold is probably the most reasonable of all of those.
I think so,
we don't see
too,
Bornhold do any sword fighting for the first, like, significant amount of the series.
Well, none of those characters
do we ever really
would
see
need sword
Dane
fighting.
Bornhold actually kicking ass?
Well, I mean, he's
in
really slow scenes like with a sword and stuff. I mean, so he'll need to know that, but
and it's certainly something that would happen eventually.
Yeah, he has to fight in. No, we'll get.
Yeah.
Like, so just to reiterate this for our listeners, obviously we are spoiling some things later in the series as they are pertinent to our discussion, but we're not just gonna be outright spoiling everything. Like, if we can avoid spoilers, we'll avoid them, but if it's important, we're not going to dodge discussing them. But anyway, but I agree with you about Jeffrem Bornhold. The first time I read this book, I remember liking him almost, and then being really frustrated by him for not
Yeah,
just letting them go.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like his logic is incomplete.
Well, and it's like the postcard of a White Cloak, right?
Yeah, that's true. It's like Galad. I don't know. Galad is.
They the best of the White Cloaks have the good intentions, but have biases and ignore information or don't have all the information. So they're like really frustrating. Where you're like, you could be a great guy, but instead you're so not like.
Well, I mean, what is the classification of Galad if we were doing a D&D game?
Lawful good.
Lawful good, right? But I don't know if all the White Cloaks.
Oh no! I'm not saying that Galad is.
So where would you put Dane, like?
Oh, Dane's like a lawful evil.
Well, no, because it depends on what part of his journey
and
you're talking
Jeffrem?
about, because he does have an arc himself.
So Jeffrem, I'd say, is also lawful evil, but they have different personalities within the bounds of that. So
he's so close to being lawful good. I don't. At times, it feels like he could be.
Maybe you could make an argument for like a lawful neutral, but
that's the argument I'd probably make. But since we're still on Jeffrem, before we get off of him, there's one little nugget of foreshadowing that I found in here, and that was when Jeffrem asks Perrin, who told him that wolves hate Trollocs, and then Egwene cuts in. She just comes to his rescue. She says, "A warder," and then Perrin relaxes, grateful, and I quote, that she didn't mention Elias. That made me laugh. I did not catch that one until now.
Oh yeah.
That was a pretty cool little moment. I was like, ha! I see what you did there.
Egwene trying to be helpful.
At the end of, not even at the end of this book, we actually found out from Lan later on in this same book that Elias was a warder, right? So, yeah, cool little moment there.
But yeah, so I think we've kind of gone through pretty much all the principal characters here.
There's not much to be said about Lan or Moiraine yet that has not been said already.
I think I summed it up in my opinion in part one.
We'll get to that too.
I want to hear from each of you your 3 favorite scenes in the Eye of the World.
Shit. Got to consider this, yeah.
I'm ready.
All right, Pat,
I'll go. In chronological order because I can't really rank them. The scene where Moiraine tells the story of Manetheren.
Ooh.
The scene in Camelin where Rand sees Logain. The whole build-up, the whole thing, and the subsequent. I'm lumping that in with
the context later on.
Yes. Well, not only that, but the subsequent scene with Elaine and Gawain.
Okay.
And, I'm taking it all as like.
All right, I'm gonna laugh if you have the exact same 3 scenes as I do.
And the final climactic battle at the Eye of the World.
Okay, so you don't have the same 3 scenes as I do.
Okay.
All right, then add to it.
Yeah. What's your? What's
all right. Well, so my 3 are, as Pat said, the Moiraine's story of Manetheren. Specifically, my second one is Elida's foretelling.
Yeah.
The tension written into that scene.
Oh.
This is, again, like, going back to, like, anybody who says Robert Jordan isn't a good writer, like, come on, man. Like, this scene is so
Exhibit
fraught.
A.
Like, it's so tense. There's so much pressure built into it, where we have another Aes Sedai who, like, Rand was seeing, from very much a remove as a potential ally, and then she becomes so sinister and so threatening because she has knowledge that could ruin Rand. And the second half of her foretelling, when she barely whispers it so that only Rand can hear, and that line where she says pain and division comes for the whole world, and this man stands at the heart of it.
Yeah.
And you're just like,
good stuff.
All right. That was so good. Such good writing.
Bloody ashes. It was
and I also want to put, like, just from like a sentence to sentence perspective, the fact that the first half of that foretelling that she spoke to the whole room uses mirroring language there. She says pain and division comes to Andor. Yeah. And then the part she whispers to Rand, pain and division comes to the whole world. Like, it's Oh, I cannot say enough good things about that.
Yeah.
What Robert Jordan wrote there was a stroke of genius. But my third scene is Agelmar's history of the fall of Malkir.
Oh,
Okay.
Damn, I hadn't considered that one.
That's that's a very good scene too. Yeah.
Okay, so adding on to your Elida scene, I just want to say, like,
Yeah.
the reread, well, no, first read, I was like, oh no, she's gonna take him. Like, right here, she's gonna prevent him from leaving, there's gonna have to be a rescue. This is so bad. And then, on top of that, his denial of, like, what he just heard for the next 2 books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Is-
nope.
No.
I mean, it's like there's this theme, right? Like kind of in the second half of the book, and it is truths coming to light. It is Rand at the end of the book learning that he can channel. You know, we have enough hints throughout the book that an astute reader is like, oh, maybe Rand channeled there. Oh, maybe this is pointing to one or more of the 3 of them at least being a channeler. And even when they don't overtly admit that, especially that comes to a head in that same scene with Agelmar and Faldara, where like Agelmar immediately leaps to the conclusion that they're channelers. And he's like, well, Moraine, you're not Redajah, but surely even you wouldn't. And she soothes him, and she's like, oh, don't worry, they're Taveran. You know, that's why. It's not because they're channelers, you know. But then at the end of the book, we're confronted with the reality. Yes, Rand can channel, and in the scene with Elida's foretelling, we're confronted with the reality that yes, Rand is at the heart of, you know, these are these like hard truths that the characters have to come to. Again, in the second half of the book, Nynaeve has to confront the fact that she can channel as much as she doesn't want to admit it. You know, like they're hard truths that each character has to confront about themselves over the course of the book. And this is going back to that like that Reddit thread I saw where the guy's like, there's no character development, blah blah. I'm like, yo, get the hell out of here. Like there's so much character development in these books. Like, and you know, so that's just like a rant I had to go on here. But Lauren, I'll let you continue your 3.
Well, have Rob go first.
Oh, Rob, okay.
Oh, you want me to go first? Okay, sure. Okay, so I wasn't really considering my 3 favorite scenes, but I have been thinking over the course of this brief discussion here, so I'm going to list them. Now, my first favorite, I would say my third place, would be the one that we have discussed already. That was Moiraine's story about the origins of those in the 2 rivers and the story of Manetheren. My second favorite would probably be the Battle of the Camelin Road, where Moiraine really gets to be a total badass and just ripples the earth and casts walls of fire and protects the entire, you know, team from the Trollocs. I mean, that was just awesome. Land, you know, blade against blade with the Murdral, you know, the 3 boys from the 2 rivers battling to, you know, just to stay on their horses. I mean, that was a really, really tense scene. I loved how much action was in there. It was just spectacular. I would love to see that on the big screen. That would be phenomenal. And my third favorite scene is not really particularly one scene. It's actually a point that I wanted to discuss. It's actually this just one notable day in the life of Rand al'Thor that happened. And it wasn't something that I noticed all of this happened on one day until I was actually on this read. And it was everything happening in chapters 40 and 41. All right? So think of, just imagine this day that Rand is having.
What were the chapter names for those?
The chapter names, I'm not sure, but it was 40 and 41. I could get it on my e-reader right
Grab my
here.
book. So this is the Web Titans and Old Friends and New Threats. Okay, all right. So yeah, I gotcha.
So there's so much stuff happening on this day. So the day starts with Rand waking up and he's going to go see Logain in the streets of Camelin. He heads downtown and he ends up seeing the false dragon. And then he accidentally falls into the palace gardens and he meets, of all people, the bloody daughter heir, right? Then he's brought to the queen herself. He's interrogated by her and another Aes Sedai. He's facing prison and potential execution. And then he hears the foretelling from Elida, right? Big deal to him. Returns to the queen's blessing. He finds white cloaks there, waiting for who he thinks is him, right? And then Moiraine just suddenly shows up in the kitchens. And I thought, like, I hadn't really realized before how much the narrative pace was picking up around this point of the book. I mean, this is all in one single day that's happening to Rand. And then, of course, what happens immediately after Moiraine shows up? She reveals the true nature of Matt's sickness and the corruption that's following him. I mean, what a day
And then
that Rand is having.
And then we find out that the Eye of the World is the target. And then we find out about the ways. Yeah, like this, like, Rand falling off the wall is, narratively speaking, the beginning of the climax. And, you know, we talked about Brandon Sanderson and the Sanderson Avalanche. Eye of the World has a Sanderson Avalanche. And that's the start of it.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong.
It makes sense.
Let me pull out my book here and just, like, look at page count here. So it's about 780 pages long. And it's, so the Web Titans chapter 40 starts on page 594. So just about 200, maybe 190 pages of the book is just climax. It's a Sanderson Avalanche.
It's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
All right, Lauren,
I agree.
what you got?
Okay, so definitely Tom Maryland in the Murderall. We haven't talked about that.
Oh, yeah, that was a hell of a scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
And nothing else needs to be said about Tom other than what a boss.
What a boss.
No.
And also, it really hurts me the rest of the series that he's injured from this.
Yeah.
And he didn't really have... I mean, I get that he was protecting Owen onto Rand. What?
I'm sorry. Rob didn't have his third one.
Oh, sorry,
No,
Rob.
that was my third one. My third one was that whole
Oh, no, you
day.
did the Camelin Road. All right, I
The
apologize.
Camelin Road was my
apologize.
second one,
Jeez.
yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, Lauren, continue.
But yeah, so I get that he's protecting Owen, but
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure there's been as much of a bonding here for him to, like, lay down his life like he thinks he's going to. You know, and protect the boys.
I don't necessarily agree.
Where do you think they bonded, though?
Because it's not just Owen, though. That's a big part of it, and he's only, like, suspicious that one of them could channel. He doesn't know for sure. But like with Matt going after Agenor and Balthamel to attempt to save Nynaeve.
You're saying it's a character
That's
reflection.
a kind of thing, yeah, because...
Okay, I don't know. He's selfish sometimes, though, and further on.
Tom is... Well, yeah, but...
Tom?
There come times when, you know, he doesn't know what's going on, but he knows, like, this is a big deal. That he's a servant of the light, and if the Dark One wants something, he probably opposes it.
Yeah, fair enough.
You know, that I think that's
lay down
legit.
your life, like most people aren't going to do that.
Maybe.
They'll say it.
He probably would lose
Drew
a
looks
fight
like he really
against
wants
a
to say
Murderall.
something.
So there's more to it than that, and I think it ties into Tom's station in life, where he used to be an important man. He used to be a court bard. He has, as much as he will talk up the station of a gleeman and all of that, Tom, I think, very much sees himself well on the downswing on his life.
Yeah.
And he's been wrapped up in these events, and he's old. He's an old man. He's getting tired. Mm-hmm. He's seeing his prime is behind him, and he sees an opportunity to say, hey, I can do one last good thing in the world.
And go out like a boss.
Yeah.
That's how I saw it.
Worthy of a song,
It wasn't
perhaps.
necessarily him being like, I have this tight bond with these boys. I do think he cares for Rand.
Of course
and Matt.
he cares, but
I think it was more a result of his own view on his life and where he was in his life.
okay.
And he just kind of had a fatalistic attitude and said, you know what, if I'm going to go out, because I feel like we're screwed one way or another. We're running from the inevitable. If I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out, try and delay that inevitable, and do some good.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense to me.
Okay, so 2 more scenes. I'm trying to avoid the ones that you guys have talked about.
You don't have to avoid them.
You don't have to. If they're your
kind
favorite
of-
scenes, they're your favorite scene.
Like, I really do love the madness scene at the beginning of the book.
Oh,
With Luce
Luce
Theron.
Theron? Oh,
I-
Dragon Mount.
Like,
okay.
that really did get
It is
to
a
me.
boss scene, yeah.
Read 1, I was like, oh yeah, here we
There's
go.
just so much to be
This is
gleaned
so
in that.
dark. This is, this appeals to me. Like,
And the dichotomy again between his surroundings and his personality. I want to draw back to that
Yeah.
again. It's just so well done.
and I mean, if you want to go along that road with him, you're kind of like, oh yeah, where is everybody? What is?
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know. I like that.
Number 3.
Okay, number 3. We haven't talked about Mashadar.
Oh,
Ah,
Shadow
Shadow
Logoth.
Logoth.
Okay.
Yeah, very creepy. Mines of Moria, sort of.
Mines of Moria. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
That's
like
where you got
that.
the
Oh,
Mines
that's
of
an
Moria
interesting
vibe.
parallel.
I
I
got
never
that
even
in the
thought
ways.
of like drawing that.
It's
Huh.
not 100% obviously, but
Well, it couldn't
See,
be
I thought the
plagiarism
ways were
otherwise.
more like Moria.
Okay, maybe
Yeah,
the
that's
ways
what I was
too.
thinking.
Let's bring them both up.
there's no
The islands
well, as
floating
far
in
as
the endless dark into which you can fall, and this giant evil presence that you can't fight. It's just your swords are useless. Run, that kind of thing.
Oh,
I got
pretty.
yeah,
definitely
the
got
aesthetics
in
of the ways are Mines of Moria-esque, but
Huh.
and the
Okay.
threat.
Okay.
yeah.
Right.
I like both of those. I don't know. I like the
Okay.
dark stuff.
So Shadar Logoth was your third scene. What in Shadar Logoth specifically?
I don't know. It's fun when you.
You can list the entire sequence.
What?
I mean, I just listed 2 whole chapters
Yeah.
as my favorite third scene, so you could just say the entire sequence.
Wanted to briefly comment that I remembered the reason why I thought Shadar Logoth reminded me of Moria, and that's where Padan Fane, who is very reminiscent of Gollum, sort of becomes who he is. He's already following them at that point, but that's when he gets in contact with Mordeth in Shadar
No,
Logoth.
that's not until he steals the
Right.
dagger in Faldara Keep. He doesn't
What's
even
the
have
parallel
anything to do with it.
Moria there?
Well, Gollum's following them through Moria.
But isn't it in the ways when Lan says...
He doesn't
isn't it-
come in contact with Sauron in Moria. Like,
Maybe I built that up to be slightly more relevant than it actually
But again,
turned out to be.
in the ways, isn't it Moiraine and Lan who says someone's following?
yeah,
that's
it-
where I
it
really
is.
got
It's in the ways
the
where
Yeah.
they realize
Gollum
that he's following
vibe.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
We're just gonna brutally beat down Pat here.
Sorry, Pat.
I can take it.
Buddy.
But so that was all of our top 3 scenes, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so for our listeners, I want to hear what you guys think. Hop on the Inking Out Loud Facebook page. Let us know what your top 3 scenes were in The Eye of the World, and and we're going to be doing this with
Sweet.
every book in the series. So, like, maybe we'll do a little poll at the end.
Yeah,
compile
poll.
some stats, see what everybody thinks the
That'd
best
be-
scenes in the
that'd be
series
cool.
are.
That'd be awesome.
So.
And we can do, book by book ones too.
No,
Well,
yeah,
that's what
Like,
I'm saying. Like,
at
we'll
the
do
end-
this
like,
every book. And,
Yeah.
at the end of each book, like for the Great Hunt, we're going to have 2 separate parts, or is it going to be 3? I can't remember.
We'll Great Hunt. We're gonna do 2 episodes. Oh yeah.
So are we
So,
gonna be
again, for the
listing 3
listeners,
in the
we're
first half?
planning on doing 2 episodes per book for this, as we've been doing. There will be a couple of them that will get 3 episodes. Shadow Rising for sure is one of them. Lord of Chaos is
Lord
one
of
of them.
Chaos, yep.
A Memory of Light, obviously. If things necessitate it, we may expand. Obviously, these episodes are already longer than normal.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, we will only do the 3 favorite episodes or 3 favorite scenes at the end of the books. So we're not gonna we're not gonna make you choose your 3 favorite scenes for
Yeah.
the first 180 pages of The Shadow Rising.
Oh,
Although,
goodness.
to be quite honest, I could already tell you one of my favorite scenes in the book is
I
in the
could
first
probably do the
180
same if I
pages.
get
But
5 minutes to sit down and think about it, yeah.
But yeah, so check out the Inking Out Loud Facebook group. I'll make a post when this episode goes live. Feel free to comment. Let us know what your 3 favorite scenes are. Let's get the discussion going. Let's see who agrees with us. I have a feeling people are going to be pretty on board with that Manethrin scene.
Hell
by the way.
Yeah. If they cut that out of the show, bloody murder will not be
Oh
off the
man!
table.
Oh, like
Oh,
I don't give a
Yeah.
fuck how much it costs. Like,
if that's not in the TV show, they're going to alienate like 80% of their audience immediately.
Just like that.
Just like that, exactly. Now, Pat, it looked like you had wanted to say something just before.
I just have two brief things to close off my whole view of this book, and
so,
they both have to do with the end. First, and the quickest one is that, God, Agenor and Balthamel are useless.
Yeah, that's where one of my closing points is going to go. Continue, my friend.
I've glowed about this book a lot, but why would... I mean, they might have been the only two who were free at the time, besides Ishamael.
Yeah.
But, wow, they were pathetic.
Well,
they were...
Hold on, I see Agenor, he's the scientist, right?
Yeah.
He's the one who invented
created
all
the Trollocs, he created the Murdral, he created
one
the
of
worms.
the Forsaken.
Yeah, but I see him as, more adept in the lab than he is
but here's the
fighting.
thing.
Yeah.
But here's
the thing.
Yeah, sorry, Rob?
Moiraine specifically says that she's surprised she could hold off Agenor for so long because in the War of Power, he stood directly just underneath the Betrayer of Hope and the Lord of the Morning themselves.
He was that close. On the level of the male channelers. I think he is...
He's one of the stronger ones. He's on the level of Demandred and Ravine, I think.
Well, maybe his dexterity's pretty bad.
It's like
plus
or maybe he's just overconfident.
In the companion, which I admit I probably haven't read as assiduously as I should have, considering how many
errors,
ridiculous amounts of times I've read the rest of the series. But they have a 1 power strength chart in the companion,
and it's ranked very weirdly.
Yeah, it's strange because originally Robert Jordan had a scale, and then he added another scale on top of it, so you have like a rank. And then there's a parenthetical rank on the new or on the old scale, and then there's the whole scale is based on female channelers. So the top rank, a 1 for female channeler, is the highest they can go. But then there's plus ranks for male channelers, and Rand and Ishamael are ++1. They're the top. And then, as I recall, it was Demandred, Agenor, and Ravine were ++2.
Yeah, that stands
Agenor's
to reason.
Up there, I guess, is the point that Drew was getting at.
And Samael, Balthamel, Balal, being a little lower than that. But again, so I mean, technicalities aside, they all should have died by rights.
Oh,
because
hell
it's 2 of the Forsaken.
Oh, hell yeah.
And there's 1 competent channeler who's extremely weak in comparison. Only in comparison.
She did have an Ongriel.
She had an Ongriel.
But she didn't use it. It didn't. I was paying specific attention this time. It never once listed her actually having time to pull out that Ongriel and use it.
But you don't need to.
Well, she's got it in her pocket. She can use it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
You don't need to be holding it necessarily.
Maureen's just a drama queen earlier and wants to impress upon the the peasants in the 2 rivers.
Yeah. I don't know. On this same subject though, I totally agree with Pat, and I had a whole point about it here. I'm not sure how I feel about that whole end of the book fight against the Forsaken with Agenor and Balthamel. It seemed that neither of them showed much more strength than the average Aes Sedai.
Right.
I mean, the Green Man killed 1, which we don't have a relative scale on his strength as to how much,
You can make an argument that Balthamel is panicking as the Green Man is growing vines into him.
Yeah, I would panic.
Well, fungi.
Sure. And, he does kill Sameshta.
Yeah, he does.
And that's fine. But Agenor is just kind of an idiot.
So I will say this for Agenor in his defense, maybe not so much in his defense, but he's also horribly incompetent later in the series.
Yes.
It's the dude was a lab coat scientist nerd back in the Age of Legends. He's not exactly a warrior like Demandred or Samael.
Well,
yes.
We have Word of Jordan, right? That women are more dexterous and that men are maybe more powerful but less, they can't be as complex. So I wonder...
Well, I don't think that's necessarily, that plays in here. He could be not dexterous at all and just, hit Moiraine with a hammer of fire.
Okay.
Blast her into oblivion.
It doesn't take dexterity.
Take what Moiraine does
what are their orders,
too? She just...
By rights, that should have happened.
Oh, they were not on orders. That's the thing. At least Agenor was there specifically to get the Eye of the World. And this is another one of the weird, maybe not settled magic things that he used the Eye of the World to make himself young again.
And okay, that leads directly into my second little niggle, and that's that the title of the book, The Thing, The Eye of the World, turns out to be kind of useless.
Yeah, because it's all used
No,
up.
no.
What are you talking about?
The things that the Eye of the World contains are useful.
No.
The Eye of the World.
The Eye of the World was directly
itself
used to
is not that relevant.
kill Balsamon. Well, kill. But
I disagree.
Okay,
but it's
go on.
just the one power. Like, that's all it is.
You're also forgetting a key
untainted source
scene
of
that
one
would
power.
have been my honorable mention in my top 3. That is, Rand destroyed an unstoppable army of Shadow Spawn that was
Yes,
about to
okay.
roll over the Borderlands
Okay.
with the Eye of the World.
I
Shi'enar was done.
find that falling a little bit flat.
How?
That the men and women of the Age of Legends, when they sacrificed themselves to create the Eye of the World, there was very much an implication that they had a
pure,
purpose,
untainted
if not a
They
foretelling.
may have wanted it to be used for something that it wasn't used for.
Right.
In fact, actually, I would, I'd have to double check this. I know I've read an interview question about this, where somebody asked Robert Jordan if the eye was used for the purpose it was intended, and I cannot remember if he said yes or no. But either way, like, I think you can't minimize the eye itself, because it had a twofold purpose. One, it severely delayed Ishamael's plans. It prevented the essentially like an unstoppable invasion of Shadow Spawn. Like, Shi'enar was done. Shi'enar was screwed. Cairhien was in no shape, as we see in The Great Hunt, to stop a Trolloc invasion. I mean, like, that would have overwhelmed half the nations in the south before it was contained. And by the time it was contained, like, as we see throughout the series, there were going to be more armies like that following. Like, there's a noticeable effect through the first, like, 4, 5, 6 books where the Shadow Spawn presence is decreased because so much was dedicated to that attack on Tarwin's Gap.
Yeah.
Like, even
they
the
even say
attacks...
that the Blight retreats.
Yeah,
miles
exactly.
and miles of Blight retreats
Yeah.
after the Battle of Balsamon.
Yeah, like, that was a major loss for the Shadow. Probably the biggest loss they suffered until...
the end of the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah.
Okay, then why not give it more weight?
What do you mean,
it
why
had
not give
plenty.
Like, I think it had
plenty of
plenty
weight,
of
no,
I
no, no. I
suppose.
feel like maybe past this book, there's not a whole lot of mention.
Well, but it's
Not
like,
much, no.
Robert Jordan's not
No.
going to spoon feed it to you. That's my point. Is like, if you're paying attention,
I
the
don't-
implications, the results, consequences
Yeah,
No,
but
are
I see.
there.
I see what Lauren is saying.
Yeah, thank you.
Like, you'd think you would hear at least it would have some consequence to somebody somewhere at some time for the rest of the series.
I would argue the consequence is there, although it's not stated.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
Like,
we
it's-
see
yeah.
it.
The
It's more
consequence is
ephemeral.
that everyone
It's
is
just
still
like,
alive.
Consider like some of the Shadow
I can see
Spawn
that.
attacks. Like we don't get another like real Shadow Spawn attack until the beginning of the Dragon Reborn, and it's what, like 50 Trollocs in
Yeah.
the mountains.
Yeah.
And then we get another one at the beginning of Shadow Rising,
The Great Hunt.
and there's like a couple hundred Trollocs, and then a couple more throughout Shadow Rising. They're like a couple hundred each. In Eye of the World, they put 100 Trollocs into the 2 rivers. They had thousands set up outside of Caemlyn. Like, they had huge numbers of Shadow Spawn that they were ready to throw around until this army was killed, and suddenly, like, instead of them getting thousands of Trollocs to blockade their campground in the Mountains of Mist in Dragon Reborn, they attack with like 50 and a fade. Like there are actual effects of the loss of this Shadow Spawn army.
All I'm saying is that the consequence of the use of the Eye of the World is very practical, but it's not as prophetic as something that I would have expected from the Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
Maybe and again, like, I'll like dive to the defense of this. The Eye of the World is not in the prophecies of the dragon.
No.
The Eye of the World was like kind of an afterthought. Moiraine wasn't concerned about the Eye of the World until 600 pages into this book, when she gets 3 stories corroborating evidence that, oh, wait a second, the Eye of the World might be something the Shadow's going after. We got to go protect it. You know, like it was in many ways throughout the history of this in the lore an afterthought. It was a legend. It was like, oh, you go see the Green Man and you can check out the Eye of the World while you're there. It's like almost a tourist spot.
Well, it's interesting that he's sent to protect this when there are other things in the series that almost destroy Rand that he could have been sent to protect, or I don't know.
What? And the fact that the Aes Sedai who made it like sacrificed their lives to make it, lends
that makes
a
it serious.
lot of like, they wouldn't just do that on a whim, you know.
Certainly, and I'm sure they didn't. And again, had Rand not had the Eye of the World, he would have died now.
Yeah,
you know, so it was important.
That's something the pattern could weave. I certainly see the the pattern nudging the Aes Sedai to do that, so Rand would have had the thing at the right time, so he would.
Yeah. But
anyway, but those were just two very supposed to be minor things that I wanted that I always vaguely think about when I read this book. But neither of them are deal breakers, and
right. Yeah, that's fair.
Well, I mean, I've got a couple more things.
Lauren, do you have any last thoughts?
No, I want to say yes, but we've talked about just about everything.
Rob, do you have any final thoughts?
I still have 2 or 3, but we can make these quick if we can.
Okay.
I just still want to reiterate how pissed off I am that Agenor is so useless. I feel like if that was Samael or Ravine or Moghedien or Demandred, that fight would have lasted about 4 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
It would have been. It wouldn't have even been a contest.
Okay. Not only that, but so honestly, I would have loved for Agenor to do some more in the series. Like, let's have another creature. Let's have something crazy come out of him.
I don't know.
Would have been cool.
I'm kind of down with him just becoming a meme.
I guess. Well, going forward with that exact kind of sentiment, there was something I noticed from Agenor's own mouth, actually, that, again, until this read, I just hadn't even caught onto that little hint there, or that little nugget of gold. And that is when he says to Moiraine at the Eye of the World, he goes, "The seals weaken, Aes Sedai. Like Ishamael, we walk the world again, and soon the rest of us will come. I was too close to this world in my captivity, I and Balthamel, too close to the grinding of the wheel," and then this is where it gets good, "but soon the great Lord of the Dark will be free and give us new flesh." Those last 4 words, "give us new flesh," and then the world will be ours once more. I cannot believe that I wasn't until this read through that I realized he meant that literally, because of course later in the series, Osengar and Arengar. Boom, it just blew my mind, and here I am reading it for like the 100th time, and I just caught on to that. So I just wanted to give a shout out to that little nugget that I found. I wanted to ask Drew one thing about just the canon of the Wheel of Time that I don't really remember, and that is the worms.
Oh.
We know that they are a creation of Agenor. We know that they were created during the War of the Shadow. They have another name. I think it was Grandel or Samael.
Jumara.
Jumara. Or Jumara. Thank you, with a J. And I know for that we actually in a deleted scene that I still haven't read to this day.
River of Souls. Sanderson. Yeah. Again, for our listeners, if you support us on Patreon, you can get access to our short episodes, and we will be covering River of Souls.
Oh yes, good, because that's what I'm referring to here. What the hell are these worms? Like, what is that creature? Are they that dangerous?
Yes.
I'm just gonna say read and find out, because you haven't read River of Souls.
Wait.
Okay. Is it gonna spoil? Okay. It's better that I find out.
Read and find out.
We have some hints.
Find out.
We have some hints about them later, though, too, where they're like, oh, those are just they're not fully
larvae.
Developed.
Yeah, they're not evolved.
Yeah.
Worms are unevolved Jumara.
Yep.
Yeah, and apparently in River of Souls we see a fully evolved.
We do.
Jumara. That's okay. So that's cool. I'm looking way more forward to that. I wanted to ask you about that dagger that the lady Cheyenne tries to kill Matt and Rand with. The dagger that smokes when it's stuck into wood. What the hell is that?
I figured that was Thakandar steel.
Okay.
Could be a Tirangrial.
That's what I was thinking. Terangriel, perhaps, but it still doesn't.
I figured it was like Shadowrot, Thakandar.
Perhaps. Okay. Yeah. Oh, and during that exact same scene, just after the assassination attempt, there was another little throwaway line that I loved hearing, and that was when Matt asks Rand, just after he's recovering from his sickness, "Can you walk?" To which Rand replies, "Walk. Blood and ashes, I will run." Right? Because we get that exact same exchange between those exact two individuals 3 books later in The Shadow Rising, as they're in Ruidion. And this time it's Rand asking Matt, "Can you walk?" Because he just got hanged. He's like, "Walk, blood and ashes, I will run." And they start running, you know? I just thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And
so I have a couple of final thoughts. One super quick. I just find it hilarious how Robert Jordan built like a just like a cultural norm where you're a shitty innkeeper if you're skinny.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Like Rand walks into an inn and sees the innkeeper's fat, and he's like, "Oh, thank goodness."
Well, that's directly after Samuel Hake, though. Like, can you name the guy?
But if you pay attention throughout the series, like it stays true to form. Yeah.
It means their food isn't very good if they're not fat. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But my other one actually again ties to the forthcoming TV show, and this was another like honorable mention scene for me. It's that scene in the library in the Queen's Blessing where like Matt has been healed and they're all gathered in there, and Rand says Loyal can stay, and they're having this discussion and figuring out what's going to happen. And this one scene, like maybe even more than the Manetheren story, is to me emblematic of Moiraine's character. The way she walks over to the fireplace and turns around and dominates the room as she's talking through the information and getting new information, and her body language is described as like, you know, when Loyal mentions the man we find out later is Jane Farstrider returning to the steading with the information about the Eye of the World, and then Perrin says that's what the Tinkers said too, and Moiraine is described as being totally still and only her head moved, and she just looks at Perrin.
Oh yes, yeah.
And, you know, and
that was so creepy almost.
As I was reading this scene,
God, Moraine's so awesome.
As I was reading this scene, I found myself picturing Rosamund Pike.
Yes,
Sweet.
yes, I was doing that the entire time we were reading this book.
And that was the one where I was just like, okay, yeah, like I liked the casting of Rosamund Pike from the get-go as Moiraine, but in that scene, I fell in love with it. Where I'm like, if they don't include this scene in the show, I'm gonna be so sad, because it would be brilliant getting to see her pull off Moiraine's body language and attitude and demeanor in this moment.
Yeah.
So like I'm very excited for that. That's something that I'm looking forward to almost more than, you know, some of the big action scenes and stuff like that.
Yeah. Now, when we will have to pay close attention to how they do the subtle things rather than the big things. That'll be more indicative of their whole show-making philosophy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's my my last thought. So I think it's probably about time to move into the final draft, yeah?
I just thought of one more question I wanted to ask you while you were talking there. We'll make this really quick if we can. That voice that speaks to Rand at the end.
The creator.
It's the creator, yeah.
The creator. We can agree on that?
No other option. Any other opinion should not be.
We'll discuss this. So, like,
that's not philosophy we've seen the Dark One exhibit to this point, right? Like,
we'll discuss this at the end of the series in A Memory of Light, because it ties in there. There is the information we know and the answers we've been given from Team Jordan. There is no possibility for it to be the Dark One.
Yeah.
It's no possibility for it to be the Dark One.
All right. Well, if we're going into the final draft, I actually have a final draft pick that kind of follows right along on the heels of this exact subject.
Perfect.
So, what I brought today is let's see here. I found this at the local grocery store. This is a country Kolsch. I have no idea what that means.
So yeah, a Kolsch is a German style beer.
Okay, cool.
From Köln, and it's like a very light, like grainy, like weedy kind of.
I did get that.
Yeah,
I definitely did. It says elegant yellow fruits, floral, lemongrass. That's what they're brewing this with, apparently. From Blythe, Ontario. This is here from Cowbell Brewing Company. It's actually called Absent Landlord, which I figured kind of matches with our theme of the creator and refusing to take a hand.
Oh, all right.
I like that.
Nice. Very nice.
What are you guys drinking?
So all three of us are actually drinking the same beer.
Ooh.
Yeah, we got a 6-pack of this guy. It's an Imperial Stout from Boulevard Brewing Company in Missouri, and this ties in back to that theme that I talked about how like the characters have to confront truths about themselves, unwanted truths, and this is called Dark Truth. And so, like, my impression of this beer is, like, it's a
Dark Truth.
It's a
like that.
It's a pretty hefty Imperial Stout.
I'll say
it's 9.7%. Very roasty, very smoky. You almost get like a smoked ham kind of flavor from it. It's not like as like thick and decadent as some bourbon barrel stouts or anything like that, but
not a chewable beer, but there's definitely like this almost dry aftertaste that lingers with you, not in a bad way, just yeah.
Lauren, what do you think?
Okay, so I like how sweet it is up front, and it takes a while to get to the bitter notes. It's I don't know, it's a good beer from Boulevard.
It's a journey.
Yeah, and it's got a good full body, which like is my problem with a lot of stouts that fall short is the body.
Yeah.
Journey before destination, because the journey is a great beer and the destination's
we will always find
hangover.
a way to bring Sanderson back into the Inking Out Loud podcast. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just thought of one more actually question about the Green Man. I think it was that I had.
Oh.
He had. Oh, that's right. So he had mentioned. Oh, Matt asks to see Avendasora. He wants to see the Tree of Life.
Mm-hmm.
And then rather than immediately answering Matt, first the Green Man does something weird, and that is he looks at Rand and he gives him an odd look.
Yeah.
And then he turns back to Matt and answers. Is that because of?
Because he looks like an Aiel.
The fact that he looks like an Aiel man, and Rand, we know that Avendasora is in the Tree of Life is in Ruridion.
Yeah.
Right? It's in the Aiel Waste. So that's why he stopped and looked at Rand like, is this guy for real? Like.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to make sure I was understanding that correctly. It was a cool little detail that, again, until this read through, I did not pick up.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it was.
Sweet, good to know I was right.
Yeah, so unless anybody has any final thoughts.
I keep thinking of new ones. Yeah, I just can't let this go. We're doing the Wheel of Time. I'm so excited.
Yeah, but yeah, so this has been episode 28 of the Inking Out Loud podcast.
Yeah.
And next up, we will be going straight into The Great Hunt, book 2 of the Wheel of Time. And for that episode, we'll be covering the first 23 chapters of The Great Hunt. Chapter 23 is called The Testing, and we will be stopping at the end of that. So yeah, if you've been enjoying this, we appreciate your support. Check us out on Patreon. We will be doing our next Patreon exclusive short episode on the strike at Sheol Ghul as well. The historical piece that Robert Jordan wrote about the end of the Age of Legends. And if you want early access to our forthcoming Wheel of Time episodes, again, you can get that on our Patreon there. I am your host, Drew McCaffrey. With me is my co-host, Rob Santos.
Yo.
And our very special guest, Lauren McCaffrey.
Hey, guys.
And our sound engineer, Pat McCaffrey.
Walk in the light.
Our white cloak, Patrick McCaffrey. And so thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
See you later, everyone.